A very good afternoon to all of you. I'm Ankita Chauhan from NASSCOM Product Council. I'm back with a new episode of our product management series. Today I have Raghavendra Kumar Ravinutala, who is the founder of Yellow Messenger. He will share his knowledge and expertise on the topic marketing plan and product launch. Before I hand over to him, wish to tell you two more things. You can write your questions anytime during the session, and Raghavendra will try and answer most of them at the end of his presentation. Also, please to provide us your feedback. Won't take more than 30 seconds, but will help us improve our future sessions. So yeah, over to you, Raghavendra.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ankita. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Great to be here as a part of the NASSCOM program. So I'll start with a brief introduction about myself and our company, and just to give a context of where I'm talking from, and then we'll go into more details about how we went about the lessons learned and some of the core things that you should consider in your marketing plan during a product launch. So I founded this company Yellow Messenger in 2015, and over the last 3 years, we have about 45 plus enterprise customers, about million conversations every day between enterprises and consumers. So we are enabling enterprises to really drive their growth and customer support automation on chat and voice across multiple languages. So we initially started as a consumer app that connects consumers and enterprises on messaging. We launched that product, and in 2016 we started selling our B2B solution, and we had a pivot. Then we had to again launch our B2B product, and over a period of time we have either been adding channels or key product segments. And I think there's been learning from the first time we did a launch to right now, when we are again doing a launch of our WhatsApp integration or product around WhatsApp APIs next month. So there are a lot of things that we learned, and we saw that working better, but we also learned a lot from our competition and companies that were doing these launches as well. And I covered this as a part of this presentation. So this is the broad agenda of what we are going to discuss today. We'll start with why you actually need to plan for a product launch. There needs to be real goals for marketing campaign around a product launch, and what are the user segments that you want to target, how to research about it, and how that drives you to determine the messaging, the channels, and positioning. And once you are aligned across the entire plan, what are the things that you need to do before your product launch, and what are the things that you need to do after your product launch as well. Just get on to the next slide. Just 1 second, I'm just putting So what are the goals for why does someone really do a product launch? You could just roll out your app on an app store, or you kind of have a website that is ready. So what is the goal of actually doing a product launch and a campaign around it? So these are the broad goals which I think we've been thinking about of the need for doing a product launch. Is one, you need to get early adopters. There is nothing like jump starting your growth, right? So if you're a consumer app, getting that first 1,000, 5,000 users in your first 1 or 2 weeks is going to be so important, because you're getting your feedback at some sort of a number which is significant, rather than just getting feedback from 2 or 3 users. So that is one clear objective that everybody needs to consider for your product launch. If you are an enterprise segment, you need to get those first 3-4 pilots, at least initiate those pilots within the first 1 month after your product launch, right? So that should be a clear goal. And this forms the baseline for your future growth. So every product company, I mean, we are determined by how fast we grow, and there are baselines that you probably need to grow at about 5 to 7% every week during your initial stage. If you have 100 users, you probably need to double them every 2.5 months and grow from there. So you don't start with 1 or 2 users, but you have really created a reasonable base from where to grow on. And all companies need partners, all companies need investors, and all companies need PR. So you need to really generate the visibility around your company, and that forms another goal for product launch. And a lot of the growth in the first 6 months to 1 year is typically driven by organic channels. Organic channels are where you're not really spending for your customer acquisition, be it consumers or enterprises, but these channels need to really support your growth of that 5 to 7%. So a great product launch will actually jumpstart those channels and feed one from another. We'll see how that goes. And last and foremost, you need to really get feedback on your messaging and positioning, right? So for a long-term sustenance of the company, you need to keep communicating what your end customers would like to hear about what your product does. So there is important that that feedback that you get is fine-tuned within the product launch period, so that that sets up for your long-term growth. So these are the broad goals around which a product launch can be determined. Um, uh, so once you have set up the real goals for your product launch, we need to really those goals to convert those goals. You need to have your set of target users that are, so for example, you're looking at get early adopters, right? So if your consumer app is targeted towards vernacular content, you need to really understand that, okay, these are people who are between 17 to 20 years. These people are in tier 2 cities, might be mostly students. So you kind of really define that my marketing campaign has to be really focused on the potential target customers. Here again, you're not looking to get 1 million, 2 million customers in the first 1 or 2 weeks. You really need those 100, 500, 2,000 users to get them, right? So, so the more targeted that you are in defining these users, the better use of your budgets and constraints happens, right? So you kind of directly go to channels that these target users use, right? And once you identify the target users, it's also possible that for an initial app, you're also confused across 2 3 segments, whether I target tier one areas for my product, or whether I target tier 2 cities, whether I target, let's say, Karnataka versus Andhra versus Delhi. So kind of a lot of confusion around the target users initially. My recommendation, and some of the ways that we have done earlier, is that do go ahead with those 5 6 different potential target users. But before you actually launch the marketing campaign, you actually do an interview and value distillation. What it means is that for each of these target segment, set up at least 4 to 5 interviews with those users, where you're actually talking to them about the overall problem statement that your product is solving, and and get in their own terms of what is the value that you are getting. A lot of time we'll be surprised about what we communicate versus what the user really gets from that particular product, right? So that clearly gives you indication of what is the value that the customer is seeing from that particular product in his own words, right? I was just talking to someone who's launched a travel app, and for example, they were looking to provide visitors information about their own city, but when they started interviewing the users who are using it, it's actually the local users who were actually using that app for their weekend getaways, right? So you'll be surprised about what's the value that the customers are seeing. So you need to really get that value in their own words for those 5 6 target segments. And once you get that, you kind of define what is your messaging to your customers is going to be, right? So let's say your PR campaign, you want to start off with conveying that particular value to the users, instead of to take the same example, instead of communicating that, okay, hey, it's a you want to check out a new travel app, you kind of say that, hey, this awesome weekend getaways in just one click, right? So you kind of get the messaging that is actually appeals to those users on how they see the value, because you're on short string budgets, and I think the right messaging really makes the better conversions in your product launch and marketing. Um, uh, so the next is once your targeted, once your messaging is very clear, then the important decision that needs to be made is the channels to really communicate that particular message, right? So again, this is the user channel mapping. So it's so if the user is someone who's a office goer in Bangalore, you're probably selling some hyper local services, or you're selling some delivery to your laundry delivery at home or things like that. So maybe these guys are traveling Bangalore. I mean, all these users spend a lot of time in their cars, so you probably radio is a great campaign, or great launch platform for them. Or what are the articles, or what are the publishers that these guys really read. So if you are looking at at a probably a your story campaign, that's probably mostly seen by startups. But if you're a company that is targeting enterprises like Tata or Reliance, really I think your launch on your story wouldn't make much of a difference, because I don't think, at least from our experience, we haven't seen those guys really read some of the startup based articles. You probably need to focus on business reviews, business standard, etc., to actually convey the messaging to those customers. So the channels where you want to do a marketing campaign around the launch is very significant, and that's directly related to both your messaging and your potential users. And you only get, unlike a lot of marketing experiments, the product launch is a one-time thing. You can't keep launching the same product every week, right, by refining and repositioning. So you need to really run a very small experiments with these people. So let's say on a messaging, you actually can run a Google ad campaign with different messaging, with very small budgets, and with those exact target user segments. So your experiment plan can look something like this, where you're actually taking a messaging, and you're taking a target users, and you're doing a permutations and combinations of both the messaging and target users for the problem statement that you are solving for your users. And you run these campaigns on Facebook or on Google, or if it is offline media, maybe SMS and things like that. So what these experiments do is, it upfront are giving you indication of what kind of messaging really works for which target segment. And by the time you are actually putting a marketing campaign around your product launch, it becomes very clear on what you need to you need to go ahead with, right? Now, for example, the way that we kind of did a B2C where we went to a lot of these conferences, talked about the product, and that gave us the initial 100, 500,000 downloads for our consumer app. But the same approach wouldn't have really worked for our B2B product, right? So if I'm going to a lot of startup conferences presenting my product, really I'm not going to get my end users. I probably need to get a business standard article, or I need to have somebody of an influencer like a Microsoft or somebody who's already working with the enterprises send out an email campaign to their customers. So something like that, right? So clearly the target users really determine the channel, and also your experiments will really determine both the messaging and channels for your user group. So by the end of this phase, what I believe you would have actually got is you kind of clearly mapped out, okay, these are the particular channels that we need to go behind, and this is the messaging, and this is the target user segment. And typically for pretty much all the product launches, I think PR will actually form a reasonably important component, because that's something that kind of stays across. It is an air game. A lot of people get visibility with some PR, and you would have some of a land game where you kind of follow with that PR with specific online or offline campaigns to really leverage the visibility that you are getting out of those PR campaigns, right? So air game is where you're actually spreading for a lot of people, and they don't probably very unlikely that from a PR article somebody would go and download your consumer app, or from a PR article somebody would go and actually sign up. As we have seen actually signups in business customers based on PR, but I think what works is you do this PR, you kind of have an article published today and people are reading it, but you kind of launch a campaign towards the evening and tomorrow on LinkedIn or Facebook, Google AdWords, so that you are actually converting the audience who are interested in your product to actually go ahead, sign up, and in a consumer download and use, or in an enterprise scenario actually sign up for a demo and the first meeting. So it's very important to do both air game and a land game. Air game covers a wide spectrum of users, but they may not actually convert. So that means that you're probably not going to get early adopters, though your visibility is good. You want both of them. So you follow up with the land game. You kind of do a PR campaign, and let's say a drive in a particular college or drive at a particular institute for your specific product. And in some cases, if both of them are done very efficiently, something that we haven't done, we haven't been able to pull off ourselves, is I have seen a lot of companies actually have a iterative effect where you do air game, you do these PRs, you have these influencers tweeting out about your product, etc. And you followed up with these campaigns, and these campaigns actually make you trending, in the sense that your word is already out, there are already a lot of downloads, and that basically excites other publishers or other influencers to really know about your product, etc. And this becomes a positive feedback cycle, right? So where you're really generating attraction. It's very tough to achieve, but I think that should be the goal of the campaigns that you would run around your product launch. Right. And once you have decided that now you have your channels, and you clearly have the messaging, you have your air game plan, you have your land game plan, and the primary thing that comes is, what do you do, like 2 to 3 weeks before your launch. Your campaign actually starts about 3 weeks to a month before actually you do a pre-launch. It could be even a lot earlier. I mean, where you're collecting a lot of signups, potential users over a period of time with your value proposition. I have seen that work a lot with the crowdfunding platforms where a specific hardware product is there are a lot of teasers, there are a lot of signups that are driven even before the launch. It could also be without your product name. You're just saying that, hey, this is something coming soon, this is a clear product, and just sign up for the first cut review, and then you kind of slowly build upon that momentum, right? And now, if your air plan is either influencers or PR contacts, so you kind of start reaching out to them a month or two before, and tell your story that is interesting for them to actually be the first one to announce a particular launch. So we did this for one of the launches for a chatbot that we did for Diageo, and where we went ahead, we talked to multiple PR companies, and I think we finally had Live Mint that was going and doing that launch, right? So you kind of start doing those PR contacts and influencer contacts right up front, and choose the ones that are going to give you the maximum visibility. Create some competition among them on the first story out there. So another approach that quite a few companies do is, you have seen a lot of articles on a company launches from stealth with 100 customers or 50 customers kind of stuff, where a lot of companies, even before the PR launch announcement, you actually create credibility right away, right? So rather than saying that, hey, this is completely new product that I'm launching, that nobody has used, I mean, there is some sort of credibility that needs to be built. So you work with a lot of beta customers. It could be beta consumers, it could be beta enterprise customers, and already have some sort of success story built in, and you do this marketing launch after that, where in the marketing launch itself, you're also adding credibility that the top companies are already using this particular product, which creates urgency in other companies to come and try out your solution, right? So these are the things that need to be done before the launch, right? And and launch is, as your product is kind of reasonably ready to be used, you have a very good minimum viable product that the customers are going to like. Then you start a post-launch campaign, right? So you, typically probably starts with either an influencer campaign or a PR release, that's followed by online campaigns. So it could be a Google, if it could be a Facebook campaigns, and you generate momentum that follow up with offline campaigns. It could be colleges, it could be institutes, it could be actually events, right? So events are a great way to follow up on the launch, and that again results in more PR, right? So you want to really create that positive loop between your product launch PR and your paid campaigns as well. And through this, you need to really be prepared in terms of analytics, in terms of measuring your messaging and channels, which are the channels that are converting, which are the messaging that's converting, and keep iterating on your campaigns, and possibly drive user virality from your initial launch, because your launch is the first step towards creating a growth engine in the future. So a great way is that your minimum viable product also has a minimum viral feature, like a share feature, or something that enables people to tweet about your product, etc. So yeah, so these are these are the things that I think I learned, and we are again launching something on WhatsApp, we are creating a webinar, and we have a list of contacts that we already have. So we kind of seen the progression from where we launched our consumer app, where we didn't have a lot of pre-launch preparation. I think post-launch we kind of reached out to the PR, so it was not as effective as I think if we were to do it today, we would have done. And these are the learnings that we had towards the product launch. And I'd really love to take questions from you and go into in depth about what you think about some of these scenarios, and if you have any specific questions, and also learn from you as well. I mean, some of you have already launched products, and I use this opportunity to learn from you to see what are the additional things that we could do for a product launch. Ankita, do you think we can open up for questions? Hello.
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 Yeah, hi. Yeah, hi, Raghavendra. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Ankita.
Yeah, so shall we start?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so here we go for the question and answers session. So the first question is by Rahul Anand. It is, what should be the marketing plan for a technology product in a startup environment where resources are limited, especially funding and human resources?
Absolutely. Got it. I think that probably addresses the. I think my presentation is targeted towards that kind of startup or company itself. So I'm assuming that it's probably a consumer startup or enterprise B2B startup. So first, in terms of resources, I think a lot of this, what I talked about, should not cost a lot of money. For example, pitching to the PR companies, I think all the investment here has to come from the founder itself. It's really tough for a non-founder to convey the company's vision, the story, to be actually able to get press releases to really talk about your company. So I think the PR part is something, it's tough to achieve, but I think the founder needs to invest their time on it. In terms of the messaging and interviews, again, it's the founder who needs to go to the users, get the feedback, get the position. The only area where you need to spend some money is around the online campaigns, and I think it's money worth spent. Even a 50,000 to a lakh kind of investment early on can make a really big difference. I have seen a lot of companies, including us, at the early stages, even that looks reasonably high. So we kind of don't do that. But I think the impact of doing a launch along with a small paid campaigns actually create quite a bit of buzz, and it's money well spent at that particular point of time. But in the absence of that, you're leveraging your friends networks, you're leveraging your influencer network, but those are the things that need to be done by the founder. I don't think a marketing consultant will help in this scenario, even if you have money, because you just cannot convey the story out there. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Raghavendra. The next question is by Vipin. He's asking that, what about word of mouth publicity?
Yes. So word of mouth publicity is what you would love to get, but for the word of mouth publicity to come in, your initial base has to be really strong. So what I mean by that, in typical math, the word of in the absence of any campaigns, you're probably starting with you and let's say three of your friends, four people, talking about to your friends. For word of mouth to have a minimum critical mass at that level, right? So we all tend to believe that yeah, word of mouth can take off initially, but word of mouth really needs a critical mass to be there. In fact, I mean, I think it's been our own company's experience. I think we didn't experience it as much as when we were doing the consumer side, but on the enterprise side, we see that happening. But it only started after we got about 20-25 customers, because it just needs that critical mass of that probability of your one customer meeting another customer or user who have the same problem or who have the um, same appreciation for the product you have. And also the product needs to be like amazing at that particular point of time to really get word of mouth going, right? So which I think the in the initial phases that could probably turn out to be tougher. But irrespective of if word of mouth is a strategic thing in your long term growth, I don't think that will work in during the launch period. You need to get that critical mass, and even if you get word of mouth, it will only help grow, but getting that critical mass itself with word of mouth would be tougher.
All right. Let's move to the next question. Okay, how do we do the best product launch for B2B scenario?
Awesome, great. So for a B2B, there are two segments. You have enterprise and you have SMB. I have more experience on the enterprise segment. The enterprise segment, you typically look at some of the business related publishers. So you kind of look at getting article going on a business standard or economic times. You kind of figure out something that actually you're doing new, where you go and do that particular PR campaign. The second best thing that you can do for enterprise space is launching at events. So a lot of these companies launch. For example, you're doing an analytics startup. There are a lot of companies attending conferences on analytics, etc. So you kind of get a space there for a product launch. So that can drive up your early customers as well. One of the third scenarios again is you partner with a large company that actually provides software for these companies, right? I mean, you could probably let's say you have a partnering with Microsoft, or you're partnering with Accenture. It's kind of tough in the initial stages, but if you're partnering with one of these companies with some value benefit of where you're using their software that helps them drive that, so you use those partnerships for your launch events as well. So that's where I see that the enterprise B2B space really work. And if you are looking at a SMB segment, that's actually a very tough segment to crack in terms of. I mean, it's actually a very tough segment to crack for SMBs. So there you are looking at your target users who are just within focused on a particular density. So let's say you want to launch it in Koromangala, or you're going to launch it in KR Puram or Indranagar. So you see that these are the areas, and then you kind of do a lot of offline campaigning around that region, right? So so that's how I see a lot of B2B kind of marketing can be done. Yeah, obviously you don't want to do a lot of campaigning around your startup conferences, etc., unless your target customers are other startups, right? So yeah, so that's how I would go about it.
All right, Raghavendra, the next question is by Sharan. Are there any other paid platforms from typical AdWords, social media, and inventory placements, etc., that helps a B2B SaaS?
Okay, so so here I think this question is more about a launch, I believe. So there are uh, uh, so especially for B2B SaaS, I don't think there are, at least I'm not aware, or we haven't used a lot of platforms where you can launch to a set of users um, uh, that sign up as early users. One thing that I think I have come up seeing right now is a lot of companies that are connecting startups to large companies. So if your B2B SaaS is, I think two ways the B2B SaaS happens. Again, you're selling an enterprise software, or you're selling a plug and play kind of software. There are a lot of opportunities in the enterprise space. I think there are a lot of accelerators, corporate connectors, so a lot of avenues where you can get in touch with the enterprises. There are also platforms, I don't remember the names, but I'm happy to share with Ankita over an email that she can share later, is doing paid POCs for some of the enterprise customers in the SaaS arena, where startups are connected to them, and you can get those things going. What I'm really not aware is if there are any platforms like that are available for small and medium enterprises kind of stuff. So Google and Google, Facebook, and LinkedIn typically are the top channels for B2B marketing.
All right. The next question is, how about customized products where the mix is new?
Okay, so I didn't really get the question out here, but at the end of the day, if it is, even if the market is, if the product is customized, and if it's mixing multiple things, the the end user is should be reasonably well defined, and the message to that user has to be, again, very sharp and well defined. So you're solving, or you're giving an incentive to the user that needs to be really sharp. So either if you're looking at B2B, how does they increase revenue very fast? How do they improve their productivity, or how do they reduce their cost? So your messaging really needs to be one of these by using this product, even if it is a mix of multiple things. So it could be a analytics driven campaign management, for example, right? So that's the customization. But at the end of the day, analytics driven campaigns is essentially driving more leads for the same money for your campaigns. So the end result, the customer would be interested in looking at your product. If you are saying that, hey, I'm going to double your number of leads for the same amount that you spend through AI powered email or chat campaigns, right? So they don't really need to understand how you customized internally for your product, but it is really conveying the sharp benefit that you are going to deliver out of your product, and that needs to come out in the messaging. And especially to get a lot of PR mentions, it's great if there is some differentiating element that you could add. Okay, it's first time that AI has been introduced in let's say SMS campaigns, right? Or if that's a campaign, so you kind of use that bit of a story for PR thing to work out. But at the end of the day, all your messaging has to definitely deliver some kind of sharp value benefit for the end customer.
All right, Raghavendra. The next question is by Vishal. He's asking, what is the role of hackathon or offline events for a development-oriented tech product launch in beta stage?
Oh, I think that is brilliant. I mean, that should definitely work. So I think that's the segment that I didn't cover, but developer segments, hackathons are one great way to actually do a product launch. I mean, I would say that's a brilliant one, and I think the target segment is also reasonably. Uh, Low cost to get, right? So you go into colleges, you go into tech institutes, you kind of launch a developer product, and I think what comes out of that is also makes a great statement about what can be done with your product. So I mean that I definitely agree with that. The other thing is also one other method is also meetups. So a lot of these developers like to meet up for a similar product or launch. So if you are actually launching a developer product that, let's say, uses some particular language or some particular skill, over a few months before you actually launch it, you kind of can create a meetup group for that particular technology. So let's say you are doing a machine learning based platform to automatically develop pre-built machine learning applications out of your developer console. Kind of create a machine learning interest group on meetups and stuff, and drive that and use that platform to really launch your product as well. So hackathons, meetups, developer groups would be great channels to launch the product.
All right. The next question is the money spending campaigns going to help for finding the investors?
Okay, I don't I don't think so. I think so. For example, for ourselves, I think we haven't tried that. So I don't know if that really works. But what I have seen work, and I've heard stories of quite a few companies that did that, is they actually choose an area. So let's say you're doing a hyper kind of is you could probably choose an area where you actually get the investors from that area. So one example I heard about is Dunzo, where I think it started in an area where the investors themselves were probably the first users of the product that actually it delivered value to them, and they saw a lot of people around them talk about it, use it. So that really gets them. But in any case, I think what's my experience is that investors are already looking for a lot of startups. I think just having your app on the app store, you'll obviously getting meetings with investors. I don't think is as tough. I think it's the later part that probably is very tough. Is getting to the check from there, because they are interested in looking out for a lot of interesting startups. So I don't think paid marketing should be targeted at that particular in that particular area. Uh, but what is the con of doing it? I mean, it's just anyways, it's a very targeted targeted ad, so you won't be spending much. You probably can choose the right persona on LinkedIn and probably target that. But I don't think they'll. I have seen a lot of successes with that, with the companies that I talk to as well.
All right. The next question is, in B2C, how many number of launch/event per year is normally suggested to keep the customers engaged?
Okay, so when we first launched our B2C product, we tried to do at least one presentation meetup every week, and I don't think that was optimal as well. But B2C, I think the initial stages, customer acquisition is the most pivotal thing, especially organic and getting feedback from the users. So one of the founders should be like dedicated to to get as much growth as possible, and a lot of that can come through either online, offline campus, influencers, colleges, etc. So in my opinion, that should be like an everyday job in terms of going and pitching your product to a lot of consumers, looking at them using it, getting feedback, and closing it out. So at least though we were probably attending one event every week or so, we were always trying to every day one founder is completely dedicated to growth. Even if it is early stages, even if you're not able to retain customers, just keep that effort to get the users on an everyday basis, where one founder is dedicated to that. Keep that going.
All right, Raghavendra. The next question is, does client testimonial or mentioning client details publicly really impacts on company positioning or messaging?
Absolutely. So definitely that makes a big difference for enterprise and B2B. So if you are saying that, I mean, it's a known thing in enterprise that a lighthouse customer, let's say you have one in insurance company as your customers, it's very, very easy to get other companies, and you let them know upfront that, okay, this company is your customer. That makes it very easy for you to get a lot of other initial customers. So that makes a big difference. In fact, a lot of startups employ that method, where they get an initial customer reference and use that in the launch campaign, and that generates interest from a lot of companies in that particular domain.
All right. The next question is, how a startup should define or restrict to market size, initial geography, and user group before arriving at product market fit?
Yeah, so I'm not sure that is a direct question related to campaigns, but a lot of that has been talked about. I think one of the best examples that I have seen during the last 3-4 years is Swiggy. I really remember Swiggy just launching in Koramangala region, and they have clearly defined metrics personally, I don't know any of the Swiggy guys who did it, but I mean, we obviously saw them, people working there, talking about how they launched that piece, right? So they just focused on Koramangala and their and for food delivery, it is one which is the time to deliver, and second is your retention or repeat orders from the customers, and third of course is your unit economics that might come later. But if you're clearly defined your metrics as as 1 and 2 in this kind of market, you really try to get a hold of a minimum unit region, and then you kind of expand once you hit those product market fit metrics, right? I think even Dunzo probably has done the same. I'm just taking the examples, right? So where it's just focused on one small unit set of customers, which should be significant enough in the sense that it really tests out your software. You need to define what that user segment is, and then expand. In an enterprise case, if you are looking at BFSI, just one BFSI customer that is retaining you and their revenue is expanding, that leads to you for a product market fit. So you define that. I think it's great to define that set which is significant enough, but at the same time proves your value proposition for that unit segment that you can easily repeat.
All right. Now, Sam has a question for you. For a SaaS application, if we couple a service package, what are the points to be considered? Will this help in selling?
I think what we have seen is a lot of that works in the kind of customer that you have. So let's say if it is enterprise SaaS, I think that definitely makes sense, right? Even right now, Salesforce has a very big service component in terms of going and implementing it. Like SAP has it, Oracle has it, and I think a lot of companies who are on the cloud and providing services to enterprises, you have to integrate with enterprise systems. So that is absolutely needed. Second is also your product is not fully done. I mean, you probably are launching when it has the minimum value, but to really work for that customer, you need to have people working on it, and you probably charge some service revenue out of it. So perfectly valid for enterprise customers. But if you are looking at SMB uh, and sub, let's say 1000 to 2000 ARR kind of product, a lot of service element early on might not make a lot of sense, just because I mean you're probably dependent on that model to scale and increase as well. So you want to make sure even there, I think there would be some element involved because you're iterating with a few set of customers. But I think when you actually do a product launch, when people are looking at it, let's say you get 1000, 2000 signups and you're not able to service them because everywhere you need to go and do that servicing for these 1000 2000 customers, you can't really build on a pretty good product launch. So for a plug and play online sale kind of SaaS products, it's better to have that minimum viable but but a product that does not need a services or heavy set of services element to deploy it for the end customer. Enterprise, I mean, every company does it.
All right, Raghavendra, the next question is, what would be the optimal timeline for a global product launch? Is it PR, online, offline, or is there a sequence or a serial number to it?
Yeah. So so I think I'll tell from our so we haven't yet done a global product launch. Again, I have seen other companies do it during our segment. So I'll talk more from what I learned with quite a few companies that we know of are doing it. Definitely marketing related. So instead of campaign related, marketing related customer acquisition is the best. And where a lot of companies have failed is you're doing this launch without credibility or without credentials backing it. So the best timeline for you to launch is having a beta customer who is already getting value, and you are able to actually quote that customer when you are actually doing that product launch in the international market. That gives you that credibility right off the gate, right?
All right.
And the best way again is again, I mean, if you're looking at a lot of startups as your customers, maybe TechCrunch is the right thing. If you're looking at a lot of enterprises, actually a conference, let's say e-commerce, you kind of do at the online this shopping conference, right? So you kind of do at that particular conference. Conferences are one great method to launch your international products.
All right. The next question is, Raghavendra, are Google ads or LinkedIn ads effective for startups?
They are definitely definitely effective because as startups, you're looking at getting I mean a B2B space, you're looking at getting your first 3 4 customers, right? So even if the acquisition costs are a little high, you're at the end of the day spending a few thousands to actually get customer signups. And they are very easily manageable initially. Those channels might not scale to get you 1000 2000 customers, but to get that first 5 10 customers, you definitely need to try everything that is possible. And this is one of the most fast and efficient way. So let's say you're trying to do a cold calling, or you're trying to do a cold emails. and it's probably taking 3 months to get your first customer. But if you're already doing a online campaign and that's shortening that period to a month or 15 days, that means that your product market fit is compressed by that 2 months, which makes a very big difference. So I think way we have been thinking, and my recommendation there is you definitely need to try that to see if you are going to get that first 1 to 5 customers easily with some kind of paid campaigns that are supplemented again through PR and kind of the air game as well.
All right, Raghavendra, the next question. What would be the best way to get the first 1,000 customers in travel and tourism? Niche question, I guess.
Yeah, so no, again, so we are not into the travel. Can you repeat the question? Maybe I'll see if I can answer. But what are the
I'll
channels
just
for
repeat it.
travel? Yeah.
What would be the best way to get the first 1,000 customers in travel and tourism?
Wow. Okay. So I'm really, I mean, I don't have experience, so please take my
Yeah,
answer
really
with a pinch of
focused question.
salt. Yeah, but I think I'm just kind of I'm just getting my thoughts out on that, right? So if you're really looking at like selling a holiday packages or comparison sites and stuff, I mean, there I think AdWords campaign would probably be one of the best, or you're going to travel. Travel conference, or one of those could be one of the methods to drive that through. There could be these agent conferences where you're kind of launching your product. I mean, that could be one way, but really, I don't think I have the expertise in the travel domain to kind of clearly answer that question, which is very specific. But those are some things that I would think.
All right. So I guess now this will be the last question. So this is how to launch high-tech products in rural marketing.
Okay, so rural marketing, I think one of the of late, I think one of the best products that I have seen that take off in that segment is Share Chat, and I think with Reliance Geo coming in, I think there's a lot of connectivity and options there. So what I think again, coming to the entire game set of PR versus some of these campaigns, right? So rural guys are actually probably using, I mean, this is the inside, they are using a lot of WhatsApp, and that's one of the primary channels that they work on. So this company, I mean, one of the growth channels for them is getting that insight that sharing things on WhatsApp is one of the key requirements for those users, and they actually launched through I think they launched through multiple WhatsApp groups, etc. So really depends again on your audience and what are they using, what are they seeing every day, and what is the method to kind of determine the channel where you want to launch that. But these are some of the things that comes to my mind in launching that. So for example, one of the companies that we work with as well, our customers, they are focused on this rural camp. They use SMS as a big method to kind of convey their launches and stuff in that particular market as well.
All right, Raghavendra, with this question, we are going to end this session. So I really thank you for this wonderful webinar and providing us your marketing insights and mantras. Few more things I want to tell to all of you, that one of our flagship event, NASSCOM Product Conclave, is approaching on 25th and 26th of October in Bangalore. Please log in for more details on our website, which is nasscom.in/events. Also, we have our next webinar on 16th of October on data science, focusing on fintech and frauds. So please be there, stay tuned, and we'll see you on next Tuesday, that is on 16th of October. Thank you so much, Raghavendra, for your time and this great presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ankita. Pleasure.
Okay, all right, all of you, bye. Take care.